What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about how to make your rune removal more efficient. And I'll be going through just some tips and tricks that I use to prepare for my rune removal. And also mostly we're going to be talking about how to use the optimizer app to help you do that. Right, so I have done a video in the past on how to use the Rune Optimizer, so if you want like a basic overview of how to use it, go check that one out. But otherwise I'm just going to go through some of the features that I didn't cover last time, and then the ones that will help you during your rune removal planning process. Alright, so first of all, before you even do any of the Rune Optimizer stuff, first thing you should always do is craft runes, okay? So you've probably seen my rune crafting videos before. It's the same idea. Like I always do that before I actually start planning my build and stuff. That way I have all the runes available, and I know like this is what I have to work with this month. Okay, so get all that done. Then you want to power up the runes and also grind them up. Now you can use the rune optimizer to help you do this. So this is in the rune section, which is in this rune button here. So down here you have all your rune details, right? This is all pulled from your JSON file, and what you can do, you can sort by level, right? You can filter it by the levels as well. So what you're going to do is, on the level section here, just reduce the max level down below 12, right? Because you want to plus 12 all your runes, so that you know what the maximum potential of each rune is in terms of substats. Okay, so this is the first thing. So you can use this to look for all your runes. It tells you the location. It will tell you what the grade is as well. So this one's a natural legendary, but it's only +6, I think, or +9. Okay, so you can go locate these and upgrade the ones that you feel that you might use in your optimizing. Now you may be wondering, what if I don't have enough mana? Like, how should I prioritize it? Alright, so if you don't have enough mana, I would suggest just at least powering them up to minimum +6, and then after that it sort of depends on their grade level. So if it's a natural blue rune, you can probably leave it at +6, because like assuming that rune probably has like crit rate or speed on it, at least you'll know the maximum speed or crit rate on that rune is X. Alright, and because those are probably the most important stats that you're going to optimize based around. And if you add more speed, or if you get more speed or crit rate onto that rune, you might overflow on that stat, and therefore that wouldn't be a very good thing if you have a unit synced, and let's say you have a rune that has no speed on it and it's a +9 rune, and then you take it to +12 after you finish building your unit. Like, what happens if you get speed on that rune, right? That will mean that maybe it's on a fuel Mars, and then it's outspeeding your Chasun or your Tessarian or whatever, whatever the case is. So I do recommend try to at least get it to +6, +9 if it's like a natural blue or purple rune. Legendary runes, it's best to try to get it to +12 where possible. Okay, and if you can't do that, then you just do the best that you can and then work with what you have. Alright, you can also use this to help you find runes that haven't been grinded yet. So for example, if I wanted to look up say Swift runes, okay, so I just sorted, or I set it to Swift only, and then let's say I want to grind my speed runes. Then you can see like this is the total speed that you have, and then also in brackets is how much is grinded onto it. So this is useful if you see like a unit that might have like 2 or 3 speed. You might want to chance it and overgrind it with another purple rune to go for the +4, or if you happen to have a legendary, if your base speed's high enough, then you might want to use that. You might want to use the legendary on that. It's up to you. But anyway, you scroll through until you can find like the ones that are not grinder, like say this one. This is 17 speed. Likely I want to grind this rune, right? So I'll do that on my device, and then I can also manually add the grind to the optimizer. That way I don't need to re-upload a new JSON file. So what you would do is you press the G button. It's a bit small, but it's just like next to the stat there, and you equip the grind to this, right? And then it will tell you like it's a hero grade rune or whatever grade it is, and what the values it can be. Now, whatever you do roll onto the rune, then you put that number in here and equip it, and then it will automatically update the stats for you. Okay. If you want to enchant a stat, you can see that next to each of the stats, right, there's also the E button. Whichever one you want to enchant off, you will click on that. So for example, let's click on this one. I could re-enchant this with accuracy again, right? And well, this is like an accuracy substat. So anything that's available, it will show you what you can enchant onto it. Same sort of thing. You just equip it and put it in the value, and it will update it for you. Now, if you happen to farm, like new runes while doing this, and you want to add it to your optimizer, you can fill in the details here. Okay, so you got your sets, your slot number. By default, you probably should just put it into the inventory. Okay, then the grade and all that, right? Then you have this main stat, the innate stats, and also the substats. There's 4 substats, so you just put it in order and add the value to it. Once you've completed everything, just create a new rune. If you want to edit a rune, all you have to do is click on the rune. For example, right? Let's say I am powering up these like purple runes. So this purple rune here, it's missing a 4th substat, right? So whatever I roll on that plus 12, I just select that stat and add the value, and then just save. Okay, and then they'll update the rune to whatever you got it to. Obviously, also make sure you upgrade the levels too, or change the level. Okay, so after you've done all your crafting, your powering up, and your grinding, try to make as much space as possible. So just sell any like unnecessary grinds and any like runes that that are like too inefficient, right? Like the very bad runes that you shouldn't really be keeping. Just try to sell those, make as much space as possible. That will help. That will allow you to move runes around a lot easier, especially if you have more than just the standard 500 available slots. All right. So like for me, I keep a lot of runes on storage monsters, right? Because I don't have. There's no way I can only keep 500 runes, right? Because I need spare runes for other units, all right? And so obviously I'll have runes on storage. I feel that a lot of people will do this because, like, the standard 500 slots is just not enough, especially if you have grindstones. If you're early game, you may not have that many runes, and that's fine. This is more for like the mid to late game players. Alright, so you make as much space as you can. That way, you don't have to worry about deleting or like selling runes or like trying to make space while you're moving your runes around. Okay, or at least that's what I would recommend. Try to have about maybe 100 slots free, and that way, because when you unequip a rune and equip like someone, you have to replace the rune, right? And it's going to sit in your inventory until you one of your builds uses that rune, and yeah, eventually you're going to fill up, and that's why I'll try to have as much space as I can. Now, while you are also like making your builds, like you can also farm, right? So what I usually do, because I prepare in advance, I do like I can fiddle around on the optimizer while I'm farming. Like you can see at the bottom here, I'm farming dragons while doing this video, right? Trying to be as efficient as possible. So like preparing in advance has its advantages by allowing you to do that at the same time. Now, if you're doing rune optimizing, I would recommend you not to do dungeon farming, mostly because you don't want to. I would rather not find a rune and then have to stress about like who am I gonna like. How do I integrate it into my builds? I have to like redo units, and you don't want that to happen, right? So what I usually do is I just do R5 or elemental rifts or just double experience. Anything that just progresses your account, but it doesn't give you any headaches while you're doing rune builds. So obviously you can use. So what I do is I optimize all my units, right? So you can see there's heaps of builds here because I have quite a lot of units. Plus there's a lot of wall boss units that I ruined up. Now, so once I have all this here, I can then, when the rune removal event starts, or when I purchase my rune removal ticket, if I'm doing it in between the events, then I just go through each build and I just move the runes around. It saves me a lot of time instead of like making one build and then moving the runes around and then moving to the next unit and so forth. If I do that, which I used to do because the optimizer wasn't as developed at that time, it took me pretty much the whole day on my main account, and then I didn't have time to even test like builds out. But this way, like I prepare all this like a couple of days in advance, 1 or 2 days in advance, and then on the day I spend like probably a couple of hours or so moving all this around, and and then I can test out my teams and stuff, right? If I need to make any changes, then I'll I can do that too. I have plenty of time for that. All right, so now one of the questions that people would usually ask me on stream is like, how do I prioritize my units? All right, because now that question's a bit hard to answer because it really depends on where you are in the game. Now, for me as a late game player, first thing I usually will optimize is my Bernard. All right. I didn't change him this time because he's still at the fastest speed he can be, and I'm pretty happy with his build, right? So I left him alone. But he's usually the unit that I look at first before all else, because my arena offense relies on him, right? So I need him to be as fast as possible, and I want like as much accuracy as I can get on him as well. And yeah, so I try to I build him first, and then I work on the next most important thing for me is Guild Wars defense, because my guild is we're competing for legend and stuff. Like Guild War defense is like to us our most important thing, because the stronger our defense is, the more Guild War success or the Guild War defense successes we're gonna get, makes it easier to get legend, right? Also, like I would like to make my defense very strong, so that I'm contributing to that too. So I'll usually will look at my Guild War defense units like Fuel Mars, Sierra, and stuff like that, right? And my Rakan, and I prioritize those units. After that, it's mostly my PvP units, like my Arena Offense, Guild War Offense units. Things like Copper, like my Alicia, my Lucians and all that, I do all those next. After that, then it's mostly my PvE units, like my Dragons team. My Speed Dragon team is quite important because it's pretty hard to get a very consistent run. Even you saw my earlier, or I'm not sure if you were paying attention, but my Dragons team failed a run, and I'm trying to get it as close as I can to 100%, right? So I prioritize that fairly highly, and then the rest of my PvE teams, like my raid teams, the rest of my dungeon teams, like my Necro team, and the elemental rifts. pretty much then it's like the last thing last few things I would do is TOA hard and then my world boss units. Now this is for like a late game perspective. If you are early game, my recommendation is to focus on your dungeon teams first. So things like your Veramos, your Bella, what else? Like Filmars is pretty good too. Like whatever you use in your dungeon teams, you should be prioritizing that to make sure your runs are as consistent as possible and hopefully as fast as they can be. You won't be as fast as like all the top players who have 1 minute runs, but as long as you probably be aiming to get into like around 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes for things like Necro and even Dragons. But most important thing is consistency, right? Because there's nothing worse than wasting 8 energy to fail. And then you would maybe look at your PvP units after that. But probably more importantly would be your TOA units, right? Usually your TOA units will be pretty similar to your dungeon team units anyway. But if you happen to have like other TOA units like Mav and stuff like that, you probably want to give them some decent runes to allow you to climb as high as possible. PvP can take a back burner, right, for quite a while. You don't need to prioritize that so early. You might have things like, let's say you have a retouch, right? A lot of people will be like, oh my god, you have a retouch, why don't you give it good runes? But realistically, you don't really need good runes on retouch so early. He's not going to help you in your progression, right? Because you're not going to use him in your dungeon teams. The best thing he's good for is mostly PvP, right? And if you're early game, all you really care about is farming glory points and guild wars points. So you're probably going to be in a farming guild, and you're probably going to be setting like fodder defense on both your arena defense and your guild wars defense, and you'll be versing other people who also be doing the same thing. So why do you need something so strong in PvP against that? You can just use your dungeon team units. Even like things like Veramos and Bella are still pretty decent in low ranking areas, right? So don't fret too much about PvP units until you get into until you're ready to go into a more competitive guild. Like when you're trying to shoot for Guardian 1 Guild Wars or Conqueror Arena, that's when you would bother with PvP units. Okay, now if you're mid game, you'll probably want to focus mostly on your raid team, because at this point you probably have some like pretty solid dungeon teams already. Like that, they probably like probably a 1 minute Giants team, or 1 to 1.5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes to 2.5 Dragons, and maybe like a 2.5 to 3 minute Necro team, right? Then you probably want to work on getting a solid raid team out, whether it's R4 or R5. Obviously you want to aim for R5, but if you can't do that, then at least go for R4 and make it as strong as you can, and start farming those. Because once you have like a good staple base, some basic runes with for all your units, the way to improve that further is to do raids, right? It will actually boost them quite a lot. Like the amount of stats you can get from grinding is immense. So you should. That's what I would recommend for a mid-game player. And then after beyond that, it's also depends on how competitive you are. Some mid-game players are competing in G1 guilds as well. Like if you probably want to prioritize your Guild Wars offense a bit more after that. Guild Wars defense maybe not so much, because you're probably going to lose on Guild Wars defense anyway. So the main thing is for mid-game G1 guild is to make sure you succeed your attacks, right? That's what I would recommend for mid-game players. Now, there's a couple other features you can use on the Rune Optimizer that help you, figure out your builds, and also, speed tune your units. The speed tuning one is probably the most important one, which I'll talk about, and it's a fairly new addition to the Rune Optimizer. So it's actually just below the optimizer. There's the speed tune option. So here you can see this is like one of my standard Guild Wars offense teams. I use this in quite a lot of my Guild War videos. And this is like the move order. So Chisumu's first, then Desarian, and the Philomars. So they're synced correctly. Now I'll show you a different example for like an arena offense. So let's say I want to show you my double Lucian team. Alright, so we'll put in our Lucians. Now one thing I also want to like show is no matter what order you put it in, it will place the unit in the correct position. So for example, I put Bastet in, and she's supposed to move second, and she's slotted in second. So it doesn't matter what order you put them in, like it will automatically put them in the correct speed order. So just to show you, this is the like Bernard. It shows you that you gain 30% attack bar, right? I believe it also calculates the speed buff from Bernard too. And then it has the combat speed, which is based on the your total speed plus your speed tower. Okay, so that's what the combat speed is. Then Bastet. So Bastet has a speed minimum of 224. That means she needs to be that speed to move straight after your Bernard. So I gave her a little bit more just in case. Okay, this way, like if there's like an opposing Bernard who's at like let's say 305 like base level, like total speed. Okay, if there was that there, and then I had my Bastet below 224, then that Bernard would cut in. Alright, but I don't want that to happen, so I make sure that Bastet is a bit above the minimum. After that, she also does another attack bar boost, and then the Lucians will need this much speed to move straight after your Bastet. You probably will go over this as much as you can, because you want to make sure that as few Nemesis users can cut in, right? So you still want Lucians to be above that, but that is the minimum speed for it to move straight afterwards. Okay, and also the move order, you can also manually change the move order if you wanted to. And also there's just a note here that because these two are the same speed, the one that is positioned on the left is going to move first. Okay. Now also you can add, if you add a speed leader, right? So if you add a speed leader, you can also use the speed lead to work out, the new speeds based on that. Right? So it will automatically update the combat speed for you. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the speed tuning. So I've been using this for like mostly my arena offense stuff, and also Guild Wars offense stuff. So I think that's a good way to like check, the speed order of your team. Even if you're doing speed, DB10 and Necro runs, this is also another useful tool, like to work out, to make sure that each unit is moving in the correct order. Okay. Alright, and another thing you can do is use the damage calculator to work out the damage of your nukers. So I'm going to use copper as an example. Okay, I'm going to need to use lock runes just to show you, because I've already made the build, but well, I've already locked the build. But to work out my best copper, you just set, obviously you set the stats that you want for your main stats, and focus on to the main damage stats for your copper that would scale on copper, right? Now then you can do filters. I want to filter it by 70 crit rate minimum because I'm using Immensity. So think about what teams you're going to use, what's going to be in your team, and how that is going to affect your copper's damage or whatever unit you're calculating. By default, this section here is hidden, so you click more, it will show you any of the new aura sets, right? So for me, I have one determination set in my copper team, so I'll use I'll add one. Now then you go to this cogwheel button here, and by default it's on option 1, which is a standard formula based on crit rate, crit damage, attack, and I believe speed as well. So this is like not a good calculator for copper, obviously, because it doesn't take into account defense. So you have to use option 2, and you set, or it will set to copper, and you want to select Thunder Strike, right, for his ability, because that's obviously the main nuke that you care about. Then the multipliers will automatically be added, so you don't need to do that. You can enter in a defense for any ability you're testing that doesn't ignore defense. By default, it's 800, but you can set whatever you want. I would recommend you to set it to 1000, just like because it's like a pretty sort of standard amount of defense that most units will have, roughly. And then you enter the skill ups, so you can click max to give your unit the max skill ups that it has for that skill. Alright, then there's these checkboxes that you need to go through. So copper is going to ignore defense, right? So you tick that. It's not a bomb, so I'm not going to tick that. I do want to include my glory point buildings, alright? And I'm going to include my guild war buildings because I use this unit in guild wars. Defense break doesn't matter because he's ignoring defense, but this is what you would tick if you're using, like, let's say you're calculating squall damage or something like that. Then you would use this. Attack buff, I don't have attack buff on my team, so I'm not ticking that. Immensity does defense buff, so I use that. There's no speed buff, and there's no branding effect from any of my units. And then I'm going to assume it's going to be a critical hit, because obviously I want to know how much it's going to crit for. If I have a leader skill, then I can put that in here. Let's say, like, if I had like a Delphoid, I would put in defense percent, and then whatever percent defense it is. But for my copper bulldozer immensity team, I have no leader skill, so I'm just going to put 0% there. Once you fill all that out, you click apply, and then you would sort by damage, right? This damage column, and this damage, I believe, is the top end damage for the skill. So my copper's top end is supposed to be 62, like almost 62.5. I haven't actually seen it hit that hard. But I think that's because it's like, you know, it's a pretty rare occurrence, right? It's probably the top end damage. On average, I'll usually see it do about 61k to 62 maybe, or like 61.5. It's roughly around there. So yeah, so you just filter by the damage, and then you pick that one and use that. And you can do the same thing for things like Lucian and whatever else. Okay. So that's another way. Like, instead of going in game and testing the damage, especially because you can't test guild war damage, right? Because you can't, like, you don't have the flags like in things like TOA and like scenarios. So this is a good way to calculate the damage of those abilities. And then the speed tuning helps you like calculate it, because normally before this came out, I was using my own spreadsheet to calculate it, and even before that I had to test it in game. I had to go into TOA and set my team up and then do it. That's why before I couldn't just do all these builds in advance, because like I wouldn't know for sure whether that unit was gonna move in the correct order that I wanted to. That's why I did it as I went. But because of the way, like how much like Xandro and Co have, how much effort they've put into the optimizer, we're able to now, you know, plan ahead and you know, do all this in preparation for rune removal. It's a pretty big help, so hope you guys appreciate, you know, all the work that they've put into the optimizer. Okay, now for people who care about world boss, this is going to be probably the last thing I'll talk about. It's a bit hard to okay, to explain. It's we don't know the exact way that the world boss calculates everything, right? We don't know for sure whether like it's based on the percentage stats, or is it based on the rune efficiency, or just the overall stats on the unit. I believe it is just the overall stats on the unit. So units that scale, like you want to pick runes that scale off the unit's base stats, right? So for example, let me just go to let's go to Malika, because he's one of my main world boss units. So if you look at his base stats, he has very high attack, and he's also an attack type monster. So the general consensus is, for units like that, you should focus the runes towards attack, right? And then what I basically do is, let's say for Malika, I would do like Fatal, and then triple attack. Okay, this is just a quick example. Alright, and I focused it on attack. Then clear that. Now one thing I would recommend you to do is filter it by 100 maximum crit rate, 100 maximum res, and 100 maximum accuracy. The reason to do that is because if you overshoot on like these stats, they do not count to adding any extra contribution, right? So if you have, let's say, like 120 res, it's exactly the same as 100 res. I did test that. I had a unit that was just on 100% before, but the rune wasn't maxed. I maxed the rune, and that unit didn't change its position at all, right? On the team. Well, if you auto select your team, and like you see the position it is on your team, and if it doesn't move up, that means it didn't improve. So I always cap it at 100, so that I don't waste any stats. Then you just do your calculations and then sort by efficiency. Okay, so the higher the efficiency generally is, the better, right? But you focus it towards your main stats. You can also add more stats, like because you're probably going to run out of like attack percent, for example, right? So you can add things like speed and accuracy. Like the general consensus also is that things like accuracy and speed aren't as good at adding efficiency as attack percent. Obviously, because attack percent scales with your base stats. But if your accuracy rune and your speed rune is really efficient, like it has very good substats in attack, then it will still help you quite a bit. Right, as long as the accuracy doesn't overshoot on over 100%. Okay, so then yeah, that's pretty much it. So for world boss units as well, obviously you should prioritize 5 stars. I would prioritize nat 5s if you have nat 5s that you aren't using, but make sure they have skill ups. If they don't have skill ups, then they'll generally be fairly low. But if you don't have a lot of units built, then a 5-star unskilled unit will probably still help you. Things like aerial and anyone that has really high base stats. Okay. After that, you want to prioritize any like wind and light dark nat 5s if you happen to have them. All right. And then after that is nat 4 water units. All right. And after that is nat 3 water units. And lastly, if you still have space on your world boss units, then you would prioritize nat 4 light dark or wind units. Okay. Generally speaking, I find the light darks are a little bit better than wind, but it depends on the unit. It depends on what their base stats are like. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, one other unit that, or like one type of unit that you'd be a little bit, maybe a bit confused about would be support type units, right? Because there's not any clear, well, it doesn't tell you like what type it is. Like if for things like defense type units, you would obviously focus towards defense, but support, it depends on their base stats. So let's say for Tetra, she has like a slightly above me, like average like HP. It's pretty decent, right? 10k, and base defense is not too bad. So that's like her 2 best stats. So you want to balance between the 2, right? And then so I usually will focus to HP and defense, for example. She also has pretty high base speed, so she's good to equip a swift set onto her. Okay, if you can. So for swift sets, because they're scaling, alright, they do scale, because it's 25%, you should put those on units that have high base speed. Same sort of thing with Fatal and like Guard and Energy sets. Try to put those onto like the respective stats. So like an attack type monster that has very high base attack should probably try to have Fatal on it. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how I go through rune removal. I prepare all this in advance, then equip it more, test out the units, and if I need to make any changes, I do that in the rest of the time. So I hope that is helpful for you guys. If you have any other questions that I might have missed for based on rune removal efficiency, feel free to ask me in comments, and I will answer you as soon as I can, of course. Alright, so I'm going to leave that here. It was pretty a lot longer than I thought it would be. So thanks for thanks for hanging around for so long, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.